Welcome to another episode of Growing E-commerce. I am one of your hosts, Mike Ryan, and with me today is
Chris.
the other one
Back
of our
in
hosts.
the suit.
Yes.
You enjoy it? My suit?
It's a good one, Chris. There was a rare departure, and I won't say you let us down, but
I let you down.
You
and
did.
I felt bad for it. That's why
Yes.
I'm back.
yes. But
Cheers, by the way.
yeah, if we're doing that now, cheers to the people listening. This is not a paid product promotion. It's just
No, not
it's
at
an
all.
Austrian product. So
It's an Austrian product,
we're
one of
based
the
on
best
food.
products we have ever produced, and we have to
Yes.
pay for it. So
It's called Red Bull.
it's
Kevin's like, our producer's like, should I edit this out?
problem. He will probably. Anyway, Mike, we have a massive topic.
Yeah.
At our hands today.
Yeah.
AI Max for search.
Exactly.
And you did it again. You broke the internet.
Yeah.
What did you publish?
In our small little bubble of the internet. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about AI Max on this podcast before, and I believe I teased that I'd be working on a larger report about it. So that's what I published. I published an 18-page report about AI Max. We're calling it the ultimate guide to AI Max.
Which it is.
If you see the PDF, though, will tell you 1 year of AI Max for Google search. That's the title in there. But
don't undersell yourself, man. You're prone to that. Don't undersell.
Well,
this is a mess. It's the ultimate guide. I really believe it.
Well, thank you. I just feel ultimate guide anyway reminds me a bit of like, what everyone's calling their blog posts in like 10 years ago for SEO purposes. But yeah, so it has been, believe it or not, 1 year or longer since AI Max has been around. It doesn't feel like that long because it was in a very small pilot phase at that point, and it was called Search Max back then. And so most advertisers have started to just get in touch with this starting from like June last year or even October of last year, I think is when it really went general availability. But it's been with us for a while now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, to the listeners, maybe you explain Eli 5 mode. What is the IMAX for search? What's the special things about it? Just to set the stage, and then go into some, from my perspective, super interesting findings.
Sure. So I'll explain it like I'm 5. AI Max is basically, it is not a new campaign type. It is a expansion layer. It's a combination of features that you can activate on your classic keyword search campaigns. And the intention is, as I said, expansion. It's to get broader. Literally, there's a lot of broad match in there. And overall to increase your query coverage and all that kind of stuff. Google says that the goal of that, of course, is to generate incremental conversions. And we don't mean in a term of marketing incrementality like MMM or any of that stuff, but rather just additional on top to what your campaign was doing before.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, I think there's plenty to talk about there. And they also promise it'll happen at a similar efficiency.
Yes.
And that's a very standard
Google claim?
Yeah, their claims are almost always structured like this. They'll give you a percentage uplift number, and then they'll say at a similar cost per acquisition or return on ad spend.
So Google has the key to solve probably one of the most underlying business issues, which is the curve of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the reason why Google is the best company in the world.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into that. We can challenge that claim a bit too. We have some time here, but first, I mean, you asked about what
characteristics stand out.
What characteristics stand out? Yeah, and I've made a table which we can throw on screen here too, and it's on page 2 of the report, which is it's just a tabular overview of all of AI Max's features, and then we see also PMax, dynamic search ads, and broad match. We see which of those technologies have the similar features or others. So in the end, the goal there is to help you really understand everything that's inside of AI Max and where are the overlaps or differences from the other technologies that might already and probably are running in your account.
Maybe this leads me to one of the criticisms. I don't know. I think it's fair to look at a technology such as AI Max for search and to have an objective view on it, and not everything is gold, right?
Yeah.
That we want to put on Front Street. By no
Sure.
means we want to shit on this campaign.
Yeah.
I think there are advantages to it, and there are certain things you have to consider.
Yeah.
One thing is the overlap with existing technologies, right? I think this is one of the major statements you made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which made a lot of sense. Can you shed some light on it? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, AI Max is in some ways just a repackaging of existing features. Even Google says this. They say yes, and that's their kind of official answer to this is like, yes, it's a repackaging of Broad Match, DSA, some things we know from PMax as well. But it's also, they make a case that it's more than that, and that kind of it's more than the sum of its parts. But yeah, I mean, if we look at like, I found that so far, I mean, it's early, and so there could be a selection bias here, but of the people who are using AI Max, many of them, in fact, almost all of them are already using Broad Match.
Yes.
And the biggest kind of value proposition should be more for advertisers who are using exact match and phrase match, because there's more for Google to do there. There's more expansion for them to deliver. And then there's also a very high overlap with DSA users and PMax users. So actually, of the advertisers,
that's the crazy stuff
that we see using AI Max, about 50% of them, 48%, half of them are using DSA and PMax and AI Max.
Now, let's elaborate on that. What does that mean in general? we had this discussion before, right? Is there, because if there's an overlap and Google handles this perfectly for you, I would say, okay, fine, I could care less. But there's this theory that it does something to your CPC dynamic.
Yeah.
Is this still something you're concerned about? Is this still something, or is this something which came out doing the analysis? Because I think this is one of the most urgent questions, right? If I have 3 technologies running in parallel, which have basically the same core, am I driving my CPC into? Yeah,
exactly.
What's your take on that?
It's tricky to know, and I'm slightly less concerned about that here than I am with with, like, for example, when we talk about PMax and shopping overlapping, because there are very few building blocks that go into a shopping unit. There's PMax and shopping are building from the exact same feed. They're targeting the exact same landing page. The title will be the same. Everything's going to be pretty much identical. And so, you know, these kind of conflicts in all of Google's technology, when this happens, it gets solved by ad rank. And that looks at stuff like the predicted click-through rate, your ad quality, the
landing page quality,
all of this stuff. And in that case, that stuff is all very identical. And so almost the only other differentiating factor at that point is the bid.
The bid.
Yeah. And that does certainly come up here once again, because we're looking at the same conflict and stuff like that. But with these campaign types, they are doing a lot more stuff dynamically and on the fly. There's the ability to customize text. There's landing page selection that can go on and stuff like that. And so these campaigns can be targeting the same query, but they can be having different kind of outcomes and ultimately what they're going to serve against that query. And so I think that this slightly
gets mitigated.
Yeah, because there are more facets that really could get weighed against. So on that side, I think it's a positive, but the risk
is still there.
Remains. Google denies this. They say that self-competition will never happen, but I'm just not 100% sure about that.
Yeah. And what worries you more than regarding
this overlap? Well, it's that these are very AI forward, or let's say automation forward technologies, and so you do have multiple paths into the same auctions, which could result in some bidding problems. But in general, you don't know which campaign is going to serve and why, because they can reach different decisions for some reason that we won't understand, that might not be understandable, and you know, the result is that you can be serving for the same search term. You can be serving from this campaign today and another campaign tomorrow, and this technology today and another technology tomorrow. And that in some cases could be up to 3 different technologies. And so I think that's just bad on account hygiene. I think that makes it hard to do your reporting and to analyze. There's an element of predictability that's lost. And furthermore, these campaigns run on smart bidding, which thrives on conversion volumes. The more conversions consolidated into one place, the better it is. And so there could be cases where you are, because of the sort of lottery that's occurring about which campaign is going to serve, you're potentially splitting up your conversion volume between these different places unnecessarily.
Unnecessarily, because it's a similar technology.
Yeah.
But you're limiting the velocity and the volume smart bidding takes decisions on, which is ultimately not the best practice.
Yeah.
So, all right. Another thing makes a lot of sense, Mike. I mean, the other thing which was kind of stunning to me. I mean, we talked about that several times. By the way, a fun story. I had a think tank session at an event 2 weeks ago in London. And I was allowed to talk to C-level.
They let you talk to someone, Chris?
They let me talk to C-level. And I was very, very proud of standing in front of them. So we talked, one topic was also the future of search, and we talked about the power pack of Google, Demand Gen, PMax, and AI Max for search.
Right,
and
sure.
We briefly showed them what each campaign type is good at.
Yeah.
And AI Max for search, and you tackled this in your great content piece here, is designed to drive incremental revenue.
Yeah.
I pitched that. We talked about that. And man, for the C-level, it was a no-brainer, right? In terms of, hell, I hope we already use this technology.
Yeah.
Is there any downside to it? And then we started the discussion, right?
Yeah.
Yes, incrementality, but incrementality costs you. Because the Google claim is, and maybe we can jump to this topic now, is AI Max for search drives incremental revenue for at the same return on ad spend levels.
Yeah.
Is that true? Because again, if this is the case, it's a fucking no-brainer to activate that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so their specific claim is that it generates 14% more conversions or conversion value.
This is also funny to me.
It's a little bit of a red flag to me because the mechanics of those are different from each other.
Highly different.
Yeah. So it's funny that they kind of suggest they're interchangeable somehow.
Okay. And there have been marketing claims for other campaign types which were separating. They were differentiating.
Yeah. If you look at Broad Match, which is one of the core technologies here, they make a different claim there, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but they say like it will deliver like, let's say, 12% more conversions and whatever more conversion value because there are average order value effects and stuff like that. Which kind of customers are you acquiring with these incremental?
Which is interesting in itself that they are not differentiating.
And then they say that your ROAS or CPA will be flat basically or similar,
which is also interesting.
Yeah, and similar is a kind of a cushion word because who are we to say what is similar or not?
And Mike, to make this clear, I mean, if this is the case, then it's a no-brainer, right? This is a campaign type everyone should activate right away.
Of course, if you can get 14% more conversions at the same efficiency,
I'm in. Where's the party? But how do you see it? How do we see it? What is the number?
So
the number's telling you.
I was suspicious of this claim from the start because it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't follow what we know about saturation curves, which is the marketing jargon for the law of diminishing returns. Every time you throw another euro or dollar, a pound of cost in, you'll get something back, but it's going to be
less than the dollar before.
Exactly, at a certain point. So, and keyword search is a very, very mature technology. So it's not like it's just waiting to be fixed or something. People have been using this for a long time. And I don't believe that most advertisers have these huge unmet pockets of demand that can be efficiently tapped just like that. But that's just me and my feelings. So I looked at the data and, just to help quantify that, we We looked at over 600 search accounts, but the AI Max adoption is still only about 16%. So we're talking about like 100 of these accounts or so. And it's not the world's largest sample, to be fair. And it can be biased because our advertisers are more mature. They have us. But anyway, what I found is that indeed it's generating more conversions, and the number that I arrived at is 13%, very comparable to Google's claim, and so that's great.
Shout out to Google.
Yes,
I would be interested in where this incrementality is coming from. But that's another.
That's the next layer. Let's get to that next.
But let's stick to it. So there are more conversions.
Yes, there are more conversions. Now let's talk about efficiency. Yeah. And I was unfortunately unsurprised to learn that the efficiency was not given. Yeah. There's a range of outcomes, and I highlight that in the report. You can see the ranges, because I think I hate when people put out these singular monolithic numbers, because that doesn't represent reality. And we'll see that especially when it comes to ROAS. So cost per acquisition is typically 16% higher. And that's not nothing, and it's
not nothing. But at the same time, if I were to run an online shop and I'm in dire need of top line growth, I think there are worse cases, right, to be made. I mean, 16%, 14% more revenue at 15-16% more costs.
I don't want to demonize AI Max here, because I think we're all grown-ups in the room. We know that more conversions cost more.
For sure.
And I just wish that Google wouldn't make these claims like they don't.
I think that's the point here.
Yeah. And so it's at that point, it's a trade-off. And we know the volume efficiency trade-off. Yes. That is the name of marketing.
Yes.
And so there are going to be advertisers where that trade-off makes sense, or they're going to experiment and see where they can push us. How can it be optimized? AI Max is probably still not the most optimized yet at this point. So let's see where we can go with it. But it does cost more per new conversion, and then the next thing is that
maybe I just jump in here with one thing, which is real, and it's happening on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We talk to clients a lot, and of course, AI Max Search is one of the campaign types we talk about as an option, to drive growth. The issue is that, of course, a lot of clients ask that question. Okay, what's the promise here?
Yeah.
And I think, and this might be a message to Google. The question is, what is the message here? Because if we execute the playbook of Google, it's like 16% more revenue at same revenue ROAS levels. These expectation levels are mostly not met, and it creates unnecessary friction. That's what I don't get, right?
Sure.
Just frame it differently, more closer to reality, and this campaign type will be fine.
I know. I mean, the saying, it's happiness is expectations minus reality.
Absolutely.
And this is why set that expectation? But and then we get to ROAS, and in fairness, most of these advertisers are not using target CPA bidding. They're using they want to maximize their conversion value or the revenue, and then you're applying a ROAS target to that. So if we look at ROAS, it's interesting because at face value, it's 0% difference from the campaign average, which is what Google is kind of claiming. But again, I could leave it at that, and say, Google's case study came true. It's beautiful. It works perfectly. But then I have to deal with the shattered expectations.
Yes. That's it.
Because these singular numbers like that, it hides the range of outcomes. Yeah. And there's a very broad range. There are people who they're getting higher than average campaign like their AI Max ROAS is higher than their campaign average. And there's many advertisers who are way below. And the distribution, like, it's a broad range. The distribution is rather flat. It's not like everyone's in a bell curve right around 0%. It looks like you have pretty equal odds of having a good outcome or a bad outcome. And I might add that probably varies month per month.
Yes.
There's probably a level of volatility in here.
And because it's not the perfect bell curve, I think it would be a smart move for Google to just be closer to reality.
Yes.
And again, the campaign type, and I think the technology is good, and it drives incrementality, which every retailer is looking for.
Yeah, for sure.
At good efficiency levels. It's just I think this is the challenge we run into to frame this correctly, because the reality is not precisely the claim of Google here.
Yes, exactly. And it's a nuanced message.
It's a nuance. Yeah, but nuances matter in life.
Yeah. Like, it's fine to put out that slide for AI Max from the Google sales numbers with no nuance, but then 6 months down the line, the nuance is going to suddenly materialize.
Yes. And by the way, ladies and gents, this is coming from a former sales guy, right? So I would be perfectly happy with that claim. But now, since I'm also more responsible for for client development in general, I think this claim puts pressure on this campaign type, and it's not necessary.
Yes.
Mike, another question, because I think this is, of course, now another nuance we should have.
Have
an
eye nuance to the nuance. Yes.
The incrementality. So it drives incremental revenue, which is great. At efficiency levels which are good, but not precisely the claim of meeting the claim of Google. Let's jump on the incrementality, because my question would be, as a client, and you're selling this to me now, okay, where is this incrementality coming from? Mike, help me out here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's first off mention that it's very possible for AI Max to find these new queries in high intent pockets of demand, specifically your brand traffic or your competitor brand traffic. We've seen that coming up more often, but they have really great ad group level, so quite granular brand controls. Like that's more granular than what you've got in Performance Max, where you can only do these things at the campaign level. So there are controls in there in their credit, so that you can. Yeah, I mean, I think every problem that comes up for AI Max can largely be mitigated, which is something, again, speaking for it. But a concern that I have that's really hard to get to the bottom of too is it goes back to the technological overlap we talked about before. Like these new conversions, like I mentioned, that the traffic could just shift between campaigns with very little oversight or control. Is it possible that some of the stuff that's bubbling up in AI Max was previously being captured through PMax or through DSA, or, so that is a concern that I think is hard to put to bed.
Yes. And I mean, here the question would be, were these conversions maybe covered by PMax at the better efficiency level?
It's another.
I think these concerns are real. Maybe, Mike, just for my understanding, that the untapped high intent search queries with regards to your brand, with regards to brand related search queries, competitor related search queries. What is your take on that in general? Because I think if it drives incrementality for me as an online shop responsible, I think I would be fine. But is it really that easy? Or are there things to consider?
Yeah. I mean, with your own brand, it just depends an awful lot on your setup and stuff like that. A reason that it might do that is because it does have a broad match component. And so if you're maybe you're not targeting your brand terms with broad match, you might only be using some exact match or phrase match things because you're trying to control that a bit more, whatever. AI Max is going to jump in on that and offer this broad match targeting right on top of those. So you can, of course, control that if you don't like it.
Yeah.
But that is one of the clearest kind of ways for that to happen. Because you might, it's always, some people are very resentful of having to pay for brand traffic and stuff like this, like all the Google tax and so on. We've probably talked about it on here before. I like to keep brand traffic just isolated so that it can be measured separately and not mixed in, so that it can be budgeted separately, whatever the case. You'll probably have your own strategy for that. And so you just need to understand that if you're activating AI Max, that's something you need to watch out for to understand the interactions there. And then when it comes to competitor brand terms, this is, again, it's a very strategic question. And it could be that you are not targeting any competitor terms in a given campaign or ad group or whatever, and it is, it is somehow treating a competitor term as synonymous with your brand, or it's finding different things. Like it's just digging up that competitor traffic because it's not being met. And this is again like some people, there's kind of a gentleman's agreement with competitors.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not going to bid against you, because they don't want to start a bidding war.
Yes.
Or they might have a dedicated competitor campaign. It could be totally different. But again, they have very specific controls and targeting and things in place there. And so the question is that the appropriate place for AI Max to be? Is that where you want to layer on expansion? So if you're going to apply AI Max to some of these highly strategic, more targeted campaigns, you need to think about that.
Yes.
And also, even if you don't, you need to verify, is AI Max doing this kind of activity?
Yes.
Because it's all manageable. It just needs to be managed.
Exactly. And I think this is one of the most positive things about AI Max. All the potential shortcomings we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Are mitigatable, right? You can do something about it, and this is the positive thing here for sure.
Yeah, I think it's not a perfect technology, but it's it's at a very good starting point compared to the way PMax started, for example. And it's not going to be. It'll be a moving target, just like all of Google's technology. They'll improve it. So, I have mixed feelings about it. There's stuff that I don't love about it. There's things that make me unsure, especially these cross-campaign interactions and effects that are really hard to know. But ultimately, I think it's worth experimenting with.
I think this is the statement we have to also with and to our clients, that it's a good campaign type. The core is good. You have controls. You can mitigate a lot of the risks we laid out today. And again, there is a potential here that it really drives incrementality for you.
Yes.
And I think this should also be the message, right, to our listeners. It's certainly worth exploring.
Yeah.
But it's not the one-click like experiment and just activate it and let it run.
Yeah.
This is not the way to go.
I mean, we've been talking from the perspective of, we have mature search practices in place. Our clients do. But there are going to be advertisers that have more primitive search builds, which is okay. No judgment. But Google's claim is that you'll get a much stronger effect here, and it's probably true. I mean, we saw with PMax search, we had clients who don't have the most advanced search setup, and they're it's a question of effort. Do they want to do it? Whatever. And PMax was doing a lot for the against that more primitive setup. Not to put it in negative terms, but a more basic starting point. Yeah,
no, makes sense.
Yeah,
Mike. Given the time is flying, one last thing, and I think we kind of broke the news in one of our last episodes anyway. But it's also, I think, part of this document you published. We talked about this overlap with basically two very similar technologies, which is PMax and DSAs.
Yes.
DSAs are are going to be the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah, exactly. They're going the way of the dinos. I said that's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Which again, we're happy that the dinosaurs exist.
Exactly.
Right? So it was good for our species. No, but again, this will happen, and I think this is a big message, right? It's especially for AI Max for search.
Yes. Yeah, to reiterate that, if you haven't listened to the last episode or you're joining us the first time or anything, dynamic search ads will be sunset, and we don't know exactly when, but that Google has confirmed this to us in public, so we can talk about it, not violating any NDAs or anything. But the implication of that is, of course, that you should start when you're thinking about testing or experimenting with AI Max. If you are a heavy DSA user, that is the perfect place to start.
Yes. Big news.
It is.
But there's no timeline, right? It can be 2026, end of 2026, rather 2027.
I mean, Google describes it as a long-term goal, which is fascinating. I think they've taken that stance with, because DSA has had already for 2 years or maybe longer, you've been able to voluntarily migrate DSA to PMax.
PMax, yes.
And so I think it's long-term in that sense. They might not ever force an upgrade. We don't know yet how they're going to approach it, but
maybe they change priorities. So I mean, again, if they really want to push the Power Pack, and the Power Pack consists of PMax and the IMAX for search, I think DSAs, they will do something about it. Even if it's not the ultimate sunset, but there are other ways for Google to just make it a less of an important campaign type.
Yeah, for sure. And one place I always listen, I always get the earnings transcripts from Google Alphabet, and I have some keywords that I do a Command F on to go find them. And I look for AI Max, of course. And from the last earnings call, it was not very present at all. The one before, it was highly present. But so when you see the execs talking about on Wall Street, there's a sign there.
There is a sign. There is a sign. No, for sure. And by the way, when we were at Dublin a couple of months ago, we talked to high-level execs, and this is the future. So it's here to stay anyway. That's for sure. Any last message to listeners?
Well, the last message is to please go read the full report. It's
yes, it's worth it.
It exists in two forms. There's the long form article that I wrote, and which you'll need a coffee for maybe. But if you want something more skimmable, we have a PDF that is super nice looking, and I actually consider it like the canonical version of the report. It's very nice looking. It's really to the point, so it's a great way to read the report. And I also published a script that helped you get more from your AI Max reports. So it's 3 pieces of content all wrapped together, and it's all free. We tried to add a lot of value with this. We work hard on this stuff, so please check it out.
Yes, ladies and gents, and I read it. I read the long copy, so to speak, after a very, very long day back from London, lying in my bed, and I didn't fall asleep at all. I wasn't even close to falling asleep.
That's the greatest.
Can you imagine that? No, I'm not kidding. I mean, reading a long copy text about the IMAX for search, but it kept me. It's a great article. A lot of findings. Mike, a shout out to you and to the team.
The team worked super hard on this, and I really try. I reject the philosophy of writing at a 5th grade reading level or whatever. Keeping your sentences as short and dumb as possible. I do not believe in that at all. I think people like to read real sentences.
Yes. Even late night in bed. No, really. Great content piece. And this is what makes me proud of being part of this company. This is really next level. Great job.
Well,
great job.
Thanks very much. And we'll leave it on a high note because we usually struggle to finish.
Can't get better than this, right?
All right. That's right. Then thank you, Chris. And thanks everyone for listening. This has been another episode of Growing E-commerce brought to you by Smarter Ecommerce, also known as smec. You can learn more at smarter-ecommerce.com. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review or rating, give us a shout out on social media, and definitely check out the ultimate guide to AI Max. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Wait. I forgot to mention one very important thing. The next episode is going to be a special episode recorded live at SMX Munich, where I'll be joined by special guests Frederick Velez and Wynand Meyer. We are working together as partners, along with some other partners, on this thing called ppcsurvey.com. This is the biggest survey in all of the paid media industry. There's, I don't remember how many, but I think over 1,500 respondents, and we've produced a 72-page report based on the survey results. So we're going to talk through a few of those highlights, and it's something you won't want to miss. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. So until then.